So welcome everyone to the Co-Creators Convergence Thursday Creator Convos. And we're going to be talking a lot about creation and co-creation tonight. I'm very excited. My name is Noelle Marshall, and my husband and I, Bob, who just left to take care of the dog, call ourselves light partners. And we are the stewards of the Co-Creators Convergence. And Bob, you there? There you are. Okay, so what I want to do first is for people who are new to us, I'm just going to play a very short video and give you a little background about the Co-Creators Convergence. They've been together since about 2013. So hold on just one moment. So welcome once again, and tonight we just have amazing guests, very creative from all around the planet, and a lot in New England tonight, so and Canada. So I'm very excited to introduce to you Isabel Hundt, who we've had on several times, a filmmaker. The Power of Connection movie is fantastic, and she's going to introduce two guests, because what we do here at the Co-Creators Convergence is we have a guest and then we kind of pay it forward and we ask them to suggest a guest, because Bob and I haven't met all the marvelous people on the planet yet. So we try to expand our network by picking your brain. So welcome everyone. As we begin now, we're going to have a centering by Olivia Cheever. Olivia, you want to go ahead and unmute yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So begin to become present to the space that you're in, the room or whatever. And just notice your breathing. As you inhale, sense your breath spiraling up the back of your spine, all the way to the top of your head toward the sky. And as you exhale, you can do it out loud if you want, spiraling down the front into the earth. And then again, inhaling up and feeling your spine grow long and light, and exhaling down, spiraling down into the earth. And then think of something that makes you smile, lifting the corners of your mouth. And expand your presence out into all four corners of the room. Imagine your personal bubble expanding out into the space, including everyone and everything in your personal space. And then imagine a quality that you would like to cultivate tonight. And ask yourself, what would it be like if I had a little more curiosity in my being right now? And sense your body's response. And then continuing to breathe up, feeling yourself uplifting And exhaling down, rooting into the earth. Expanding your presence out to include everyone. And being curious as you smile. Inviting everyone into your presence.
Thank you, Olivia. Wonderful way to start. So what I'd like to ask everyone to do, except our guests, is to go ahead and turn off your video and perhaps mute yourself. And we're going to have a wonderful chat here. And after some conversation, after they let us in on all of their amazing information and presentation, they will invite us in. But you're always welcome to put information or comments into the chat, please. This is being live streamed onto Facebook, so we are monitoring those comments as well. So you're welcome to join in this conversation, and I'm going to turn it over now to Isabel. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Noelle. Yes, I'm more than happy to introduce my two friends. Ayelet, I have known for a little longer than Natalie. Well, Ayelet introduced us, so duh. Ayelet and I have had amazing conversations in the past, really deep. It's just an amazing friend overall. She's a global futurist and an author of the books, Fuck the Bucket List. We love the word. And those are incredible 3 books. I love them. She's an amazing writer, truly very powerful. So anyone, go to her website. I think it's ayeletbaron.com. Is that right? Yes. And get the books. Just check it out. It's really awesome. So anything else I forgot, Ayelet, about you? No? Okay. Cool. And Natalie, I know as a shamanic Reiki master, and I know you do a lot of research and you have your PhD in psychology and biology or something like that. Is that right? And she's the founder of the community called Shield. I remember that one correct because that's a really interesting spelling of the word. So it's really awesome. And I'm part of her community on Facebook as well. And it's just an incredible community of like-minded people with similar goals and dreams. And so, yeah, so the two of them, Ayelet and Natalie, are just incredible powerhouses. And I just saw what you posted. Yes, Ayelet is also the founder of the community Heart Picking, which is also amazing. So all of those communities are really, truly opportunities to create something much bigger than, what we could ever imagine. And it's just beautiful. And I think tonight we're talking more about creation, right? Yes. Can you tell I'm not totally prepared, but I remember that. So yeah, so I think that's about the two of them, and I'm just going to hand it over to Ayelet and Natalie.
Thanks. Is it Isabel? I'm just kidding. We're going to talk a little bit, but I would love to have conversation and videos on it a little bit, because I think it'll be, I don't know how you feel, Natalie, it'll be a lot more interactive.
Yeah, for sure. That was my understanding. We were going to have a conversation, so let's do it.
So I am super excited to be here, and I think I don't know if there are any rules, but I really wanted to be here with Natalie because it's a great example of co-creation, where we're working on building things in parallel, but in essence, we're all working on the same thing. And that's where we're headed right now in many of the initiatives that we have. And it's interesting because we are not focused so much on kind of like trying to fix things or save things or change things. We're really focused on this new timeline that's emerging, to look at what's possible and to look at the opportunities that we have and what we can go out and create. And that's where the focus is. And I know for me personally, I just birthed the triplets, the three Fuck the Bucket List books, and Natalie's actually in two of them with some of her neuroscience research, which I think is really relevant for our times as well, because it's comprehensive and gives us kind of a tie between science and spirituality as well, and what's possible in the world. And, you know, my dream is that at some point in our world, the books that I just brought in will not be needed, because we're living and creating a healthy world and really looking at our own lives from a healthy perspective, which I know almost everybody on this in this conversation is focused on, but also in how do we build the systems that serve the vast majority of us, not the few. And the focus really is on creation and knowing that we can't do it alone. And quite frankly, we don't want to do it alone, and we don't want to fight. So just a personal story about me is my first memory in life is war. I was 3 years old when war broke out in my country. And what I saw was this amazing ability of people coming together during a crisis. Even as a 3-year-old, I saw community come together. But at 3 years old, I didn't realize that if the enemy, so to say, would have been successful, that I wouldn't be here in this conversation tonight at all. And so it became really real. And for me, I look at things and I'm really questioning, you know, our inner conflict. Why are we fighting within ourselves? And then why are we fighting with each other? And I think we really want to create a world where we have an ability to bring back the lost art of conversation, the lost art of connection with ourselves and with each other, and stop the fighting and really understand why are we fighting? What are we fighting for? Even in any type of put whatever before, whether it's real war, nuclear war, spiritual war, why are we fighting, and what is possible? And how do we move to create this healthy world with heart-centered people? And so I really want to frame this conversation around what's possible, what are we creating in the world, and get a lot of input from others about it. And I think a great example of a community that's forming, and Natalie's background, which Natalie, I hope you're going to jump into a little bit, just tell us more about yourself.
Sure.
And the community that you're building, and the purpose and what you're hoping for.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Ayelet, and thank you for inviting me. I'm really glad to be here. And such a big focus for me recently has been, well, the last year and a half has been creation, because I think it's so important that we make that switch from complaining to creating. And it's so easy to complain. We're wired that way, and we're so good at finding problems, and we're not as good at creating solutions as, you know, our divine self, it truly is aligned with that. We are creators. So this is our greatest joy, is to bring this forward into the world, whatever our unique passion is, whatever our unique cause is. A little bit about me, my background. When I was three, my first memories were pretty much the suffering of my mother. I mean, my parents got divorced. There was just deep sadness in my environment that I remember. And my mother being sort of everything at that age. My goal from the very beginning was, how can I help relieve suffering? That was the most salient thing in my life. So from that point on, my focus has always been, how can I make things better? How can we take the situation we're in, which for a lot of people is suffering, and how do we move beyond that? And how do we take the lessons of the suffering, because suffering's the path to enlightenment, as Buddha would say, and grow from that, and then become who we were meant to be here, and to express our God-given gifts or our passions, our joys. So that's where I started off, but I very much felt this strive for truth as well. So part of that suffering is like noticing these patterns among adults, then like, why is everyone behaving in this way? Why are we fighting about all these things? And just seeing kind of these imbalances, these patterns that no longer serve, and how do we get out of that? How do we shift? And so for me, my focus was in science and learning about the truth of existence, and trying to just understand reality, understand more and more about why we're here. I felt like here for a purpose. I felt connected to some kind of distant soul family. These are just innate things that I felt. So in my schooling, I learned all about the brain, the mind, and I ended up in neuroscience, and I got my PhD in neuroscience. And I was very disappointed, I guess, by the scientific community and the closed-mindedness of wanting to study phenomenon that matter to a lot of people, spiritual experiences, life after death, that all of these phenomenon that are so common were just called pseudoscience and shut down. And so my quest began to connect with other what are called post-materialist scientists. So I met a lot of wonderful fellow scientists, and we formed a group through the Manifesto for Post-Materialist Science, and we're really about studying human potential and consciousness and our interconnection. And somewhere along the lines, I just started thinking more about solutions, like what do people really want, and why are they living completely opposite to what they want? So just over the past decade or so, connecting with people who all seem to share this similar interest in living in community, feeling disconnected and isolated, and having this yearning, like you said, for support and each other. And everybody that I spoke with, like, oh, I'd love to have community. I need to connect with more like-minded people. I really want to grow food. But nobody seems to have the tool, or there's some kind of disconnect there where it's just that leap forward that I think is difficult. Even for myself, I've wanted this for a really long time. So me and Mario Beauregard, who's another neuroscientist, at the same time had a meeting, and we both had this idea for creating a network that would be community-based rather than individual-based, where you would meet like-minded people that share similar values. So universal love is the foundation of our organization, so that this understanding that we're all interconnected as one, that all of us matter, and that the golden rule, treat each other the way we'd like to be treated. So Shield is this startup that we've created, getting the crowdfunding going soon, and hopefully launching in the fall, where we'll be able to find people local that share our values, that are like-minded, and we can connect in person. We can build communities, any kind of community you want, really. The platform will allow for just connecting across neighborhoods, or actually building like a self-sufficient community, and then sharing amongst these communities, so that communities are helping communities. So instead of kind of friending and following, it's communities that are connecting. So we have a global network of local communities that we'll be developing, and we'll be sharing and innovating and helping each other out. So what we've been doing so far is just building this community through email, through Facebook, and then we're going to be all migrating over to Shield, and it's going to be great. We're going to be connecting so many different organizations, because I think, like Ayelet said in the beginning, at some point, like we're all trying to do the same thing. It's like we all know what we need to do. We need to come together. We need to create these networks, these communities, support each other, and we're all doing it in our own unique way. And to me, there's zero competition. I want us all to connect, so that we can create this great shift. So I'm really happy to be here and chat about all of this. So.
Yeah, this is great, and I wanted to talk for you to talk about Shell before I talked about heart pickings, because again, it's what I'm working on with a really amazing group of people that Linda Polio, who's on the call as well. Hopefully when we jump in, she'll jump in as well. When we jump into the conversation, she's part of the core team of that, where we're building a community for heart center people, which is going to be a portal, an aggregator of trusted sources of people that we trust. And then we're looking for other organizations and other platforms to bring us all together. So we have like a portal where we can find each other and not have to, you know, right now, even though, you know, social media is called social, it's not very social. It's more about broadcasting and advertising and influencing. And we really want to have an opportunity for heart-centered people to connect, and for many people who are going through transition right now to be able to see what resources are available in one place and be able to find each other. My background before I started working as a futurist and as an author was I worked in tech in the Silicon Valley, and I really saw I love technology in the way that we use it when it's integrated into our lives. Like for me, this pen is a technology. And somehow when we started creating digital technology, we got lost on it. But isn't it wonderful that we're all here at whatever time zone we're in? Although some people probably aren't here because they're sleeping, but, but we're all here and we're able to connect and we're able to have conversations. And to me, that's the beauty of technology. And we haven't even scratched the surface of what's possible. And I think, Natalie, I mean, it's really interesting because I think when people hear about digital communities, they kind of get frozen and they don't know what to do, because we don't, again, really have social communities prevalent, and we know how to connect with them because we have like things like likes and all these superficial things that really get in the way. But every single person has been part of a community. But when we put digital in front of it, we forget about it. And so I think one of the things that you're trying to do is really bring that sense of community, because heart pickings looks more at global and looks more at aggregation and looks at creating creation pods based on creating healthy systems for the world. And Shell is really looking at the local community, but also at a global level. Did I get that right?
That's, yep, you got that right. Yep, it's primarily about connecting in person, having support, being able to share food, to barter together, to exchange goods on a local scale, but then also connecting globally. But the focus absolutely is on building that local support network of like-minded and what I like to call like-hearted people as well.
So what do you see kind of like the people that are joining? Do you have them already, or are you looking for ways to find people? I mean, tell us a little bit more about kind of your...
Yeah, absolutely. We're at the stage where we want, well, we're going to have beta users, of course. So we're recruiting communities that are already established. And those will be our first communities to help guide other communities to develop. So there are intentional communities that have been around 35 plus years. They've learned how to self-govern. If that's, you know, some communities are going to want to be anarchists or whatever, but they can offer tips. They can help guide the creation of communities. So there's a lot of people that really want to create communities and they have no idea how to do that, where to start. And then there's all these communities that have been established. So we're going to create almost like a mentorship program to help connect that. And also for skill sharing is a big key. So a lot of people, there's a lot of lost skills for basic survival, growing food, making clothing. We've become very reliant on a large corporate system. And, you know, that could be dangerous for a variety of reasons. And if we lose that system, you know, what are we going to do for survival? And we need each other. And obviously, we need to relearn some skills that have been lost along the way. So we're having very skilled mentors on there that will help teach people how to build a home, how to fix a home, how to generate free energy, all of these things that we would need to survive and thrive. And then of course, like bigger things like innovation and bigger ideas. So it's all the way up from like basic survival needs to more creative endeavors as well. But the primary focus definitely is in-person communities, connecting, sharing, and enjoying each other's company and having fun.
And how much are you tapping into things that are existing? Like I'm just looking at the comments at the chat right now as well. In terms of
The intentional directory for, the Foundation for Intentional Communities, we've been in contact with them. So they have a nice database of intentional communities. So we're collaborating with them, hopefully, and they also are doing something similar with their current database. So we're looking to connect and expand. And of course, like I said, we want to connect all of these networks. We're not trying to monopolize anything at all. So we're definitely looking for more partnerships. And the Dem and Her, I don't know if I pronounced that right. It sounds like it is a great model for intentional communities. And I've looked a little bit into that. I don't know if I'm missing anything else. Ubuntu.
Yeah.
That's a good model for creating self-sufficient, somewhat self-sufficient microeconomy. We haven't partnered with them or pursued that yet, but that's definitely something that we could look into.
Yeah, we've identified them for heart pickings as well, because
nice.
What we're looking for is like not to recreate. I think one of the things I've noticed, especially coming from a corporate background as well, an observation I've had is we're not very good as people at really understanding how to collaborate and work together in the current kind of reality that we have, in the current world that we have. And as we transition to more community-based, it's not going to be an easy process of shifting because, many people have been, if you look at teamwork and collaboration, I don't know how many books and training programs and things are out there on it, but we really, the only way I could say it really nicely is we really suck at it, because we create systems that support people, one person getting a promotion or so many people getting a bonus or a raise or whatever, and it creates this incredible competition. And so the transition to really be able to put down your sword and look at that common purpose of what we're creating is really important. And I know I love the flow that we have, because we're co-creating things at the same time, and it feels like I'm part of yours. Hopefully you feel like you're part of what we're doing as well, and ultimately we become one. But that ability to really collaborate and work together is something that is ancient and new. What are your thoughts about how, what are some of the challenges, and then what are the opportunities of how we move forward in that?
Yeah, I think, so in the SHIELD space, I think, because we're connecting like-minded, we're connecting people that often have felt very alone in the way they've thought about the world. So it's like that saying of like herding cats. So I think sometimes it's like you're so used to being in your own lane that we're like learning, okay, this person, I can trust this person, I can work with them, they feel the same way, we're heading in the right direction. So I think there's a bit of that going on. I think I'm also in a Western culture, and I know the individualism obviously is predominant over here, and whereas as opposed to collectivism, which is more in the ancient traditions as well as the East. So I think that's part of it as well, as we're learning to like tone down a bit on the individualist tendencies and to work together in that harmonized group. So I see a bit of that happening. And yeah, I think it's definitely a lessening of the ego as well, because we all have these great ideas that we want to pursue, and we're in it together. It's not about anyone triumphing over anyone else or anyone succeeding, or it's really about the goal and what we want to create. And it doesn't matter really how necessarily we get there, as long as we all help each other and we work toward that. So it's definitely, I think, a different way of thinking for maybe a lot of people, at least in the Western culture. But thankfully, technology is bringing us all together all over the world. So we have this opportunity for this diverse collaboration. So it's really fun and interesting, and we're all just trying to navigate it. And so many people are doing so many amazing things, and we really do need this network of networks, or portal of portals, because I think a lot of us don't know what everyone else has going on. A lot of us are so busy in our role, in our work. So I love to hear what other people are doing, and connect and collaborate, and really hope that we can make some real progress in shifting our systems.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of this is the ability, to also mirror nature, and really look at those connections, because there's so much intelligence under our feet. And our ability to communicate is a huge opportunity of seeing what's out there as well, and how it plugs in. And also, to me, this is related to the second book in my trilogy, which is Trekking into the Unknown. I think that even though many of us know that everything's here to be discovered and there's nothing new under the sun, in many ways, that ability to let go, and to trek into the unknown, and to try different things, and to fall down and get up, is also very hard for people, because people want to go on something that's already built and baked. And I think with heart pickings, we're giving people an opportunity to be a co-creator on it, and see what works and what doesn't, and experiment, and have an ability for people to create their heartbeat, and know what's important, and connect people based on what people are creating in the world, or what opportunity is there, or problem. But we're really shifting from the problem solution. We're kind of in this intersection where up till now we've been really looking at a problem as a solution, and we're in intersection where that meets opportunities and possibilities based on what we need, and having the conversation. And it's interesting, when we're building heart pickings, we're talking about there's no one else except for us, and what do we need, and how do we create this based on what we need, not what someone else would expect. What is the experience that we want to have, and how do we get our things out into the world. And as well, I mean, something that you said that I find a lot is, I talk to more and more people individually, and so many people are feeling alone, and so many people are feeling lonely or misunderstood, or don't have people to talk to right now. And having the space where you can just come in and be who you are, even though you might not even know that yet, you're just in the exploration phase, is becoming really important, because there's that ability to connect in a really deep and meaningful way. And I'm sure you see that a lot through your shamanic practice and the people that you're working with as well, Natalie.
Absolutely. This particular time has caused a shift in everybody, and it's a huge opportunity to reassess where you're at, if you're living with your values, with what you really want to create in the world. And just the nature of being human is, most of us want, there's a little shift we can make. There's fine tuning, there's things we can change. And mostly it's either fear or a lack of faith, and a lack of disempowerment, essentially. And I think we get overwhelmed with how many problems are in the world, and we get paralyzed because we can't fix everything. Certainly not things in different countries, and and so there's some people just, it's overwhelming. Like, what can I do? And that's why with Sheil in particular, oh gosh, it's so important to connect globally to people who feel the same way. With Sheil, a lot of the focus is really on what can you offer. So instead of when you go on Facebook and you say, I do this, it's more about what can I offer my community, rather than like what my job is, for instance. So, or what school I went to. So for instance, I can pick up groceries for a neighbor. I know how to fix a broken fridge, or something. No, I don't, but or I have some extra sweaters that I can give, or there are all these things that we can provide that we don't normally think of until we start to shift into a community model. And then it's like, wow, I can offer so many things to people. So that's really a big shift too. And that causes more self-efficacy and this empowerment and self-esteem, like, oh, I really can make a difference. And working within our sphere of influence first, helping our neighbors is obviously very, very powerful for that. So, and even people that, you know, they may not feel like they can do anything, they certainly can. My uncle's one of them. He's very like, oh, I can't help anyone. I don't, you know, he's unemployed, but he's an incredible drummer. It's like, you can teach drums, you can show people, you can just play for people. Like there's so much that everybody can offer. So I think it's a really good way to start to shift our thinking differently that other social networks don't necessarily provide.
Well, you have a question here about why did you pick the name, and is it like nextdoor.com, which I know you and I talked about before.
Yeah, Sheil, my co-founder Mario, came up with that. We didn't come up with it, he discovered it, I guess. It's an Old Norse word meaning soul. And I like to think of it as like the ultimate soul, like the oversoul, so of which we're all connected. And we wanted something unique and hard to pronounce. No, not really, but it does make it memorable, I guess, in a sense, because it's not simple. So no, it's sometimes capitalized, but it's not an acronym. And nextdoor.com, that is, remind me, that's when you're help your neighbor, right?
Yeah, that's the neighborhood. It's in the US, and it kind of gives you information and bulletin boards and things like that.
Yeah, I think the difference is that this is really about building community. So it's kind of like nextdoor.com would be encompassed sort of within Sheil, but it is about like intentional value-based communities and like-minded individuals. So I think the intention is primarily different, and yeah, it's more community-based cohesion.
And it's in creating this world that we're stepping into.
Yes.
Not the first one. I think
right, the new earth or whatever you want to call
the
it.
thriving world, I'd like to call it.
The thriving world, yeah.
So I'd like to invite everybody to turn your cameras on. And I'd like to invite one of my co-founders of Heart Pickings that's on here, Linda Polio. Linda, I would love it if you're still, yeah, you're there. If you can just introduce yourself and talk a little bit about Heart Pickings, because it's about community and co-creation.
Okay, my name is Linda Polio. I'm a consciousness doula. I was involved with conscious business practices for many, many, many years. And I'm very passionate about sort of helping people expand their consciousness and the self-awareness, because I don't think that if people don't really learn to go within, they're never going to be able to change their external world. I have a book out called Trusting the Currents. And I've known Ayelet for a while. I actually met her through my book and through a mutual friend, Tim McDonald, who is an amazing human being. And we've been on sort of the same page for a long time. I'm very connected to heart-based people, organizations, intentions, thoughts. For me, the heart is a North Star. And no matter what our social conditionings are, if we can just get into our heart, we can kind of navigate through that minefield and kind of come to the same places. Hold on a second, my dog is shaking here. Ayelet started Heart Pickings. And I wanted to get involved immediately because I know there have been a lot of organizations, and I've touched on many of them over the years, who's had very good intentions to begin something meaningful, New Earth, connecting people on a more meaningful level. Collaboration has always been the problem, because collaboration in the past, from my experience, has always been help me with my project, and not so much, how can I help you? So I basically, when I met Ayelet, I knew that she really meant collaboration to the point of generosity, which is to me a very big thing. So when she asked me to get involved in this, I was very excited because I know that she is very extremely interested in collaboration to the point of generosity, and that her whole focus is on connecting all these disparate groups that have the same passion and vision and that are willing to focus through their heart. Because I said, we're all coming, particularly when we're all over the world, we're all coming from our own social conditionings, most of which are unconscious. So we have to navigate that within ourselves. And one of the missions of Heart Pickings is to help people navigate through themselves, to find their heart and to find who they truly are in that space, and to be able to be vulnerable. And I'm sure Shell's the same way. I mean, I think that is the connecting rod between the two organizations, is that it really is about just connecting people through their heart and finding the things that are similar for them within that space, so that the things that we have differences around that are basically, we're trained to feel that way. We're not actually, there is no real difference. We're just trained. We can then kind of navigate around that and lessen those social conditionings and bring the heart up more, so we can get through anything together. And I may not agree with Ayelet about everything, and the people that are connected to our group right now are a small pod that we're sort of modeling this thing after. We're modeling it ourselves. You know, we're coming into conflict with each other, and we're expressing our vulnerabilities and our frustrations, and we're sort of like huddled around each other while we're going through this, so that, because every time we're working on some, you know, part of the project that is, you know, structural or whatever, we're also dealing with our own humanity and our own issues. So we have to take those into account as we go further. And I think that's really what Heart Pickings is about. It's about not only developing all these ideas and all these methods and work and, you know, ways of people helping themselves and to connecting to other people that feel the same way, but it's also learning how to navigate our own issues and having that part of the growth process of Heart Picking, so that by the time we're finished creating Heart Pickings, we've created the model for how people will operate within Heart Pickings. And I'm really excited to get involved with Ayelet on this, and for all the different groups that are really coming from that same space and just want to find ways to help each other. I think it's a very exciting time.
Thanks, Linda. Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing time. I'm amazed, like recently, how many people I'm meeting that are working in parallel on different things. And it's like we have like this jigsaw puzzle with lots of pieces, but because we're trekking into the unknown, there's not that picture that we're doing, because we're doing it as we go. And that's a huge heart shift for us. I'm trying not to use mindset, but it's a huge heart set for us to really look at kind of what's possible and what are we creating together, because we're so used to having that goal and trying to achieve and not rushing through it. Because my feeling, especially coming from a strategy and tech and working as a futurist, is we need to create it by living it. And we can talk all we want, but it's in the birthing and the ability to bring it together. And, you know, recently we found this organization that's working on self-management, and they've created a lot of tools that are out there. And it was great because when I talked to the founder there, he was like, yeah, we're just working on this, and then we're figuring out how to come together. And it's a very, very different approach than I think in this community, it's probably more prevalent, and looking at the comments, people have done it, but it's that ability to be able to weave and to look at how do we take the pieces and bring them together, and lift each other up. Like Isabel has this amazing film that needs to get out, you know, as much as possible to the world. And, you know, her connection now with Natalie is just incredible, and it's just starting. And so how do we seed all these things and really be able to create a place that is trusted and we could go to and we could find each other for Heart Pickings? And I think it's similar with you, Natalie, but we're not going to have demographics. We're not going to have likes. We're not going to have, if you want to go influence, there are many places you want to influence, but if you want to connect heart to heart, we're going to have an ability for people to tell us what you're about, and then be able to connect people without having friends or connections or whatever it is, because the whole community is there to embrace each other. And even in talking to people, sometimes it's challenging because people will think, oh, well, I can do it in geography. Well, we're not, no. Like, wouldn't it be amazing if we got maybe 7 people who are looking at regenerative agriculture together in different, wherever they are, and they had a community to build that together, or people looking at wellness or fashion. There's a lot of amazing work right now happening in the next generation of fashion. And if we got the people together feeling less alone and creating healthy systems for the world, that's the opportunity we're looking at as well. So I don't know if you want to add that to Natalie, and then we just want to open it up for conversation and questions, or if other people want to share what they're working on. Everything is open here for conversation.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And we'd like to use Sheil for that as well. We're going to have this function called like synchronize, where it'll based on tags, it'll connect you with people working on similar problems, we don't want to say problems, similar creations. Yeah, I think that's really, really important, is to connect people on purpose, on vision, on creation. And that's how we're going to succeed. Yeah, and I'd love to hear from other people as well.
Well, the floor is open. You can raise your hand, or you can just jump in here or put something in the chat. Let me just back up a little bit. I promised somebody I would ask you this, Natalie. Did you happen to know Eben Alexander? Because he was a neuroscientist that...
I don't know him personally. I know him like a degree of separation. He's part of this post-materialist group, and he wrote a chapter in a book I co-edited. So yes, and he's, incredible neurosurgeon from Harvard who had a very profound near-death experience, and it just shifted his whole worldview. And that's all he's been working on ever since. Is I think his book was Proof of Heaven. Proof of Heaven was his first book, and he had one after that. I forget the name of that one. Yeah, he's incredible. Really nice person as well. Really, yeah.
Well, I know that there are some people on here that I'm going to point to them and call them out if they don't speak, but
lovely.
Because they're all about community.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with Shelley, because Shelley does a lot with, you knew I was going to do that to you, so don't act surprised. She spends so much in heart resonance and developing community. And I know this is right up your alley, Shelley. If you want to share anything here, we'd love to hear from you.
I swear to God, I texted her to say I was in listening mode.
Oh, is that what you meant?
Oh, is that text? Which phone did you use?
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, first of all, I just want to say to both of you, and it is right up my alley, and what you're doing is exquisite and from the heart, obviously, and that to me is where the difference gets made. Just gently, my background is I've been working with groups ever since 2011, where I met Noelle and Bob and Barbara Marx Hubbard, and the last time I saw Barbara, it was, Shelley, will you just claim that you're the coordinator of Heart Resonance and get on with it? And I'm not saying that as an egoic thing, but because it is my love and my passion is working with groups. And over the past year, I created a platform for exactly what you're looking for, where people come together. And what I'm hearing is really feel safe to be who they are. They feel like they can relax, and they find their community, and that magnetic attractor is the love itself, right? It becomes, you don't have to push or fight, because we learn that love is the best generator. The heart is the generator, right? And which is why you don't want to say some of those words and all that stuff. But I'm really thrilled. Just, I haven't been on a call for a while. Noelle and Bob know that. And for some reason tonight, it just was like, oh, definitely need to get on and listen. And so, yeah, I guess what I feel is a key ingredient, and would love to be open to connecting with you both, or, like what's really beautiful, you've got the heart, you've got spirituality and science, right? And that's the key piece to bring those two together. And so for me, I just feel like the ingredient that changes everything is when we learn to, yes, weave our wisdom, co-create, and also how do we turn our whole self to the intelligence of nature itself, that it becomes the guide. And that's what I experienced. I grew up with the co-creators convergence, and what Noelle and Bob are doing is incredible. And it's become now its own vibrant community. But mostly it's because we've learned and how to listen to the field, how to, what is resonance? And I would love to talk to you about, just yesterday I was saying to a group, okay, so let's really go into what's the difference between coherence and resonance, because people are kind of getting it all mixed up and they're not really clear about it. And for me, that what you're saying is how to bring people into that field of resonance within themselves. Thereby, when we come together, we create greater coherence together. And therefore, the effect is exponential, right, within our community. So I love what you're doing. I'm really happy to be here. And I'm not going to say much more than that and let other people have a chance to talk. And so, yeah, Noelle knows how to get a hold of me. And I would love to support you if, that's something that would work. And yeah, happy to listen to more. And your enthusiasm is being felt here. We get it. So thank you.
Thanks, Shelley.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry I put you on the spot, but
All right.
Yeah, right, is exactly.
oh, shoot. Okay, I'm going to call somebody else out now.
People are dropping off now.
You're scaring everybody.
Yep. People have left.
Okay, Olivia has been connected with this group. Tell us about the Sunray Peace Village. And, it's a wonderful community. It's amazing. I'm going to get there, up there to Vermont somewhere. Go ahead, Olivia, please.
Well, my teachers have been Native Americans, and the Peace Village is based on a Cherokee Peace Village. It was established, reestablished by my spiritual teacher, longtime spiritual teacher, who is a 27th lineage carrier of the Cherokee, or Chalagi, as we say. And she's also an emanation of a female Buddha. So she also teaches, she's a Khandro in both Nyingma and Drikonkagyu lineages. And she was foretold by her ancestors that she would come, and that what they envisioned was a peace village where everybody would come together in the circle from all different ethnicities. And when she started teaching as a young single mom, she was part of what we call the 5th generation of young Native American people who were called out, thank you, Noelle, by their wisdom keepers that were the 4th generation. And they came around and they said, it's up to you now to really awaken not only your own people, but also other people on the earth, because we're going to be going through these changes, which they had all of these different indigenous cultures have foretold. So she was very, very courageous, because when she first came out and was teaching white people, not just Native Americans, but also all sorts of different ethnicities, ceremony and spiritual practices and how to be in community, this was frowned upon by some of the Native American tribes, because first of all, she was a woman. And second of all, and the Cherokee are matrilineal, so everything is passed on by the women. And so she really has, I was drawn to her because of her courage and her brilliance. And I've stayed with her because many people, many leaders have had clay feet. I've found that they've had empathic failures or moral lapses or whatever, gurus, etc. I'm not saying all gurus, but Venerable Dahani has never, ever let me down. And I've known her since 1978.
Olivia, let me jump in here. You have a gathering of elders every year.
Yes, I was just going to say that.
Oh,
What she
okay.
does, yeah, I was just getting to
Aren't
that.
you on year 37 or something?
Yep, we just had our 37th elders gathering, which we have every year in the end of July, the last weekend of July. We've held it for 37 years. The only year that we didn't have it in person was the 2020 with COVID. This year we had it in person as well as online. We had 197 people registering online. So we've become global with COVID. And it's wonderful because we bring together wisdom keepers who are Algonquin, Abenaki, Iroquois, Micmac, different tribes, Lakota, and also Tibetan lamas and Harvard scientists. And they talk together about how can we live in a sustainable way, and not only sustainable, but thrivable way together, and share their knowledge of what their people have been able to do with these different nations, despite the way that they've been treated.
That's awesome, Olivia. And that's a model that's obviously working if you've been doing it for that long. But I think a lot of, Natalie, what you're saying is like some people living physically close. And Ayelet, I think you want to go more global and
Well, I think what we're doing, it's been a community of people who have lived close to the Peace Village. The Peace Village the land was given to us. It's a land trust in 1987. And there are some local people who live there. And then we also have retreats there. But what we've found is that we also have a global community. We have a community in Germany. We have people in Spain. We have people in South
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that.
yeah, we do. And yet I think what we want to be able to do more of, and I'm so excited about what you're saying. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Ayelet, is it? Ayelet?
Ayelet.
Ayelet, thank you. Sorry, it's terrible when you pronounce names wrong. Ayelet, thank you. And Natalie, because what we want to do is be able to have more dwellings so that people can come on retreat there and not just camp out, which is what they're doing now,
Okay.
but really have places that people can come all year round. So we're very interested in connecting with other communities, and also we are an NGO of the United Nations since 1992.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, we do.
I think you found some of your connectors here. And speaking of the physical, I want to bring in, is it okay if I bring in someone?
Absolutely. Go
I
ahead.
want to bring in Shay's comment. She said, I would love to help create a real in-person community. I think digital is great, but I'm poised to make a big change. Selling all my material possessions and hitting the road with my 2 boys in January. Part search for my new home community, part documentary project, big change. Tell me where to drive, LOL. Well, you've asked the right person.
And you've come to the right place.
Bob and I lived in our RV. Shelley could attest to this, Flo can, for 10 years. And we were in a documentary, the one about Barbara Marx Hubbard's life. And Barbara Marx Hubbard, I don't, you know, visionary, you know, futurist. And, you know, she started the Foundation for Conscious Evolution. Yeah, I just wanted to get into a few more of the other comments here. Some people put apologies that they had to get off, but they loved this topic. But maybe Natalie and Ayelet would like to comment on some of the people who have shared so far.
Do you want to go ahead or? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, and about 3 months ago, I became a location independent digital nomad without an RV or a fifth wheel or whatever you call it. And I think many of us are looking for community, and this is a question, you know, I belong to a couple of digital nomads communities, and it's been fascinating to kind of look at where people are looking and looking at that ability to live. And I think Natalie, in a minute, you'll talk about what, you know, your recent move and what you're doing, but I think it's still a challenge. And I think we need to be nomadic a little bit to find out where the people are. I know Isabel and I have talked about that a lot, as well as with Linda, and many people are feeling that way. For me, I have been, even though I'm in my mind and in my heart, I'm only 27, I've been involved with online communities since the late 90s. And I joined communities at the time. We had some amazing platforms that were created in the late 80s, early 90s, that connected people based on what we cared about. And until the other platforms came out and became more commercial, they kind of killed it all. And so I think what a lot of people are doing right now is really recreating what existed before, but also looking at the fact that, you know, for me, having the in-person is important, but having people around the world that I connect with all the time. You know, I started my morning today in Dubai, and I moved to Spain, and, you know, I moved around the world, and the technology allows to do it. And we, apart from touch and smell, we have everything when you turn your video camera on and you jump into dialogue, and this notion of in real life, or in, like, are we all, you know, I know some people believe this is a hologram, but, you know, I mean, to me, this is real life right now, of us connecting in community and having a conversation. And so it's not an either or. And if you ask a young person will not distinguish between in-person and online. It's just a flow of how we choose to connect and how we choose to engage. And so the question is, where do you want to live? Who do you want to be in community with? You know, when your fridge breaks, or when you want to grow food, is a conversation. But I really think we have to shift our mindset about this online thing, or about technology, because when it is integrated into our lives, it's super powerful, and we are able to feel less alone and much more connected, because it's up to us. You know, when I was a kid, we weren't allowed to bring books to the dinner table, and we actually sat around the dinner table and had conversations. And so it's about the choices that we have and the importance that we give things. And so that, I think, is the opportunity. And I do believe that with heart pickings, we will have people in different locations geographically, but then also people can connect locally if they want to. But it's not driven by where you live. It's driven about what you want to care about and what you want to create in the world. Natalie, what are some of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that balance is super key, and yeah, and that's where Heart Pickings and Shield differs, because our focus definitely is on connecting in person based on the need that we've observed of people that really want that. They want to grow food together. Their parents, not to make it a gender thing, but a lot of women that like, oh, I just want to grow food with other women and take care of our kids together, and like it used to be. And so we're trying to definitely meet that need, meet the need of the loneliness. I talked to someone the other day who said, I haven't had a hug in 4 years, and it's just so upsetting. And so being able to connect in person and to share that physical energy, and yeah, maybe it is all a hologram, and that's just a limiting belief of ours. But if we want to garden together, being in the same garden plot can certainly help. And but also using the technology to connect globally, connect these local communities globally. So we're trying to strike that balance so that we can all help each other. And maybe a community is trying to get going somewhere in the world, and you can help seed it. You can maybe donate to them or give them some tips or send them some materials. So we're definitely trying to strike that balance, because it is so incredible to be able to connect in this way. And it certainly does fill a lot of those needs as well. I know social support transcends being physically together. But myself, I'm yearning for that in-person connection, because I just haven't had it as much as I need it. So it's like Ayelet said, it's about creating what we want, what we need. And it's like, I want Shield. So, let's make it. So yeah, that balance I think is super key.
Yeah, and I think I think, like, again, I mean, of course, want to connect in person as well, but looking at also what's possible. I've been very blessed because I got to work around the world, and to work in almost every continent around the world, and see it from a different perspective. And I would show young people who lived in slums how to use technology to where people didn't need to know where they lived, and all of a sudden, they could post their poetry, and they talked about the poetry, not about the fact they lived in a slum. And so these tools that we have in community, and then they go back locally and they create other communities in it. So again, it's I think Shelley, or someone mentioned the nature part of it. I think it was you, Shelley, but like that ability of, just like the intelligence of nature, the intelligence of fungi and trees and so on, what's below, how do we bring it above? Because right now, as a whole, I don't think we're the most intelligent species on the planet right now. That we have this need, like, we have a need to be hugged. We have a need to connect with people. And for me, this is not a replacement, it's an and that's, I think, where we're moving, is from this duality or polarization to the ability to say, and I need this. And if you want to argue, that's fantastic. Heart Pickings isn't for you, because you can go in many places to be right. Now that you're right, so what are we going to do about it? And that's where the creation is. And because we don't have many frames of reference, we get stuck in language, and Linda is amazing in it. I mean, she was very humble in her introduction, but her book, Trusting the Currents, is amazing. It's a visionary fiction. And the way that she uses language is a gift to humanity, because we really look at it from, how do we create? Like, everybody's running around talking about purpose and meaning, and we have to have it. But the basic of community is, what do we share? And it's not values that we come up with and we stick them up on the wall and we never live them. And that's the opportunity we have, because the online help supports us in every way. And of course, we want the companionship and the neighbor. You know, for me, it's been very hard. I lived in a very rural community for the last 5 years, growing my own, some of my own vegetables, fruits, and sharing them with the bears and whatever. And now I find myself, you know, temporarily in a concrete jungle. And I could see the vast separation that we're in. And, you know, I'm really missing nature. And I don't think we need to detox in nature, because we are part of nature. And that's a big piece of getting back into community. And I think, Natalie, that's why a lot of people want to garden. And Isabel, I mean, I would die to go to sit with Isabel in her garden, and because I see all the stuff that she grows. But I know that you're also yearning for that community and ability to do that. Maybe you could weigh in just a little bit about your thoughts about this whole conversation, because I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, certainly. It is definitely interesting. I think I love, like, even within Indianapolis, there are a lot of people, and especially families with children, who are just really yearning for that connection, because I think over time we have just forgotten what it means to be family, even if you're not blood related. We see it in our neighborhood. We're one of the very few who have a backyard. We don't have a huge property, but we have 9 big garden beds, and that gives us enough food to can and store for ourselves for the winter, but also share with neighbors. And every time we share with neighbors, they just look at us. I'm like, we've never experienced that in any neighborhood, that people just come over and give us food. And I'm like, really? Because for some reason, that is how I grew up. I grew up in a very small town in Germany. And so that is just, for me, so has become so normal to check on my elderly neighbor who just lost her husband, who to go across the street because, you know, she works at night and they're older. But she's a nurse at night. So, you know, you just go over and check, but it's also very diverse neighborhood. So most of our neighbors are African American. So of course, they even have, like, they look at you like, why are you, white person, giving me food? Because they're just not used to that. There's always been this segregation. And that is really hurting me. That is hurting me, just to see, why can't we just go over and just ask for help? I never had that. I never, like, living here, my mother-in-law is the closest and she lives 2 hours away. So when my son was little, I never had that actual support. I had to, you know, sure, I have my husband and he's amazing, but sometimes you just need someone who you can just call, like, hey, can you just take him for an hour or two? It's just getting too much. I didn't have that, and it really was prevalent. And you know, maybe that's why the adoption hasn't worked out yet, because I'm still in this fear of, what, I don't really have support. So what if I need someone? Because I have this big vision, even for my work. Something that I have noticed, and I don't know who has some ideas, I have some ideas on this, but what I have noticed, so many people now are coming to this conclusion, to this point where they want to create communities, where they want to buy off a big piece of land to preserve it, but also build sustainable homes. Now I have been, I think it was Kathy who sent me the website to someone who is introducing hemp houses, how to build houses from hemp, which is amazing. Like, this is what I want. I want a geothermal home. I want to use nature to be sustainable and to have the least amount of impact on nature in the way we use materials. But then there's the financial part of things. And I think that is where people are still, like, really in the, oh my gosh, I don't know how we would be doing that. Like, I see my husband, he has a well-paid job, right? It's hard to just say we're packing our stuff together and we're just going to trusting that, because my business is not covering that, what he is making at this point, because I just worked a year and a half on the documentary and everything else just kind of went wayside, right? so I'm getting back into that, but we see that like there's so many homeschooling communities here, and everyone is like, how can we do this financially? And that has been the biggest challenge, I think, for people, because we're still so dependent on it, because if you want to have a hemp house, you need to buy hemp. It's this back and forth. And something that I have noticed, and there's more and more of that community coming together, is gifting communities in particular, especially for financially supporting each other's dreams and creating a structure and how we can globally come together. We're in the process right now, because I have been within gifting communities for a long time. And so there's so many different structures of what works and what doesn't work. And so we really have been sitting down and just taking a look at what can actually work financially to support everyone equally in a certain way. And right now we have a South African team who have created an upgrade to they pretty much took 10 different gifting communities, evaluated them, and brought that back on one community, on one platform, where we're all able to interactively support each other financially. And interestingly enough, in Africa, most of the African countries have a law specific for gifting communities that they're encouraging that, because the government is not able to support their own people. So they're encouraged for people to create gifting communities, in particular within the structure of whatever that would look like, mandalas, or like there's so many different kind of ways to do that, right? But it's fascinating, because this is how they have survived for so many years. This is what they do. And within the Western communities, we still so much depend on, but I have to make money, I have to have a job. And I think that's where even I am still stuck, and my husband too, where it's like, but I need to have the job, we need to have insurance, so how we're gonna do this, right? It's this programming, this belief system, and how we know this has worked the whole time, even though we know it hasn't really worked and it's not working now. So it's hard to wrap your head around that, to be able to, I don't know, to create those communities when you're so job dependent, especially when it comes to location. My husband could work from anywhere, but they won't let him, because they love to have their people close by. If we need you, we can go in your office and talk to you and talk your ear off. So it is interesting where we're at right now. And I think that's where we're in the middle of this shift. That is what I'm so excited about. Financially, I think there will be new things coming where, well, I heard a lot of them about Gisara. I'm not exactly sure how that works. I haven't gotten too much into it, but so many new different models where we can even embrace the financial part to create the community.
Yeah, I think that is definitely where most people get blocked.
Yeah.
It's that shift from their day job. And most of the time they don't want to be doing what they're doing either. And they have skills that they could be making money from, but it's that leap of faith. Very, very difficult. And I think with Sheil, we're trying to help in a sense of really encouraging the exchange, the bartering, the sharing. There's options for promoting what you sell as well within the platform, but we're really encouraging how much can we really just exchange amongst each other and not need money as much. And certainly looking into these community models as well. So yeah, that's tough. And for you to have grown up that way and to now be in that different environment must really be challenging. For me, like saying your mother-in-law is a couple hours away, I grew up like that with my family, always like a 2-hour drive away, uncles, aunts, grandparents. So my whole life feeling that kind of lacking. And then my mom passed away a year ago now. And she was my best friend, my fan, and when she was gone, it's kind of a gift in a sense, as the most terrible thing that ever happened, but is showing me what was missing that I was overly dependent on her for. So seeing like, oh my goodness, I don't have that family connection. I don't, it's glaringly obvious. And so I'm helping create this platform for myself as well, because I'm I'm longing for that in-person community. And just when I think of my childhood and my brother as well, and the importance of having community for building resilience, having a rough childhood, having parents that were unconscious, and like, it would have been nice to have like an aunt or an uncle close by to buffer that. Like they say, it takes a village, right? So I think a lot of the mental health issues in children wouldn't be nearly as prominent as if we were living in communities, more community living.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
want to say we're
Oh, God.
Oh, wow.
We're just about out of time here. There have been some wonderful comments and resources put in the chat, and I just want to mention some of them. Our dear Tex had to jump off, but there's a network called SIGN. I think, Shelley, you're also familiar with this, Synergize Impact Network Exchange, where it's supposed to be like a network of networks. And there's also an app called Weaver, WEAVR.app. And so you go there and you say, I'm Noelle, and this is what I'm interested in. And then you can connect with all these other people. They go like, oh, and so it's a way to network your networks that way. He also suggested every Wednesday night, we have a gathering of Unity Earth at 6 o'clock Eastern time. It's a Zoom call. Everyone's invited to that. And that's where people, a lot of people, most everybody who shows up has an organization. And there's no talk, it's just about us. What would you say, Bob?
Yeah, I think the Wednesday night call is an opportunity for people to talk about what they have going on in their organizations, particularly events, worldwide events, global events, online events, and some in-person events as well. And there's a lot of indigenous wisdom that is a part of that conversation from all over the world, Australia and South America and the United States.
Right.
So it's a very special conversation. Isabel's been there a couple of times.
And Olivia has as well.
Yeah.
We also put into the chat a presentation that was done at World Unity Week by Audrey Kitagawa, who is the past president of Parliaments of World Religions. And that is quite, they have 6,000 people come to that. It's held, last time it was held was in Toronto.
Right.
And that was a great place to connect with other groups. And she made a presentation, and it's about the crisis of loneliness among young Americans. And I would highly recommend that because, that's kind of underlying everything that's that you are trying to build to alleviate or ameliorate this issue. And so I really commend, the work that you're doing.
That conversation is a panel with primarily chaplains from universities. And so it does have a bit of, it's a subset because it's people that can afford to go to college, and it's people that are, privileged in that way or blessed in that way. But there's so much applicability. And the conversation from earlier, Ayelet and Natalie, about young people, the use of digital, what is social media, what is community online compared to community in Isabel's neighborhood or community in an intentional community. Lots applicable in that conversation as well.
Yeah, so I just wanted to mention some of those resources, and Bob also put in there about Yes Magazine, very positive. It doesn't take any advertising, and they have a special one on ecological civilizations. Then I think would also, we're just trying to, I just think the chat was so rich tonight. And if you want to save the chat.
Oh yeah, there's an article in that. Tribes Revive Traditional Hemp Economies was one of the articles in that Yes Magazine issue.
But I'm going to turn it back to you beautiful presences who have been with us tonight to close us out with any final words. And thank you so much for your contribution here tonight.
Well, thank you so much for Isabel for bringing us here. I love kind of the connection piece of introducing and coming in conversation and then building on it. And I think that's one of the things that's really important right now, is that we have a solid foundation in what we're creating moving forward, because the foundation of the current world is falling apart. And I think that's a wonderful thing. And as we take what's working and trek into the unknown, we're able to see what's possible. And communities have been here forever, and we're not trying to do it as the next trend or whatever, but it's really that heart-to-heart connection of imagine just for a minute that instead of looking at humanity's biggest problems like the SDGs do, which we've thrown trillions of dollars at, human life, effort, energy, that we looked at our biggest opportunities and our biggest needs, and we came together with ways to address them in a heart-based way. And whether it is in person or online, whatever we do when our hearts meet, so much is possible. And Natalie, what would you like to leave us with?
Well, that was so beautifully said. But I'm just mostly just very grateful and renewed in faith every time we have a conversation like this, that, you know, we all understand the protocol. In other words, like we know what we're here to do, we know what we need, and we're aligning our hearts in a way that we're going to really make that happen, because it is about not competition, but cooperation and connecting in the heart and listening to that, and letting nature guide us. And it's a really exciting time, as challenging it as it is. But, you know, when all the pieces are up in the air, that's when we have the opportunity to put it all together in a new way. And I'm really, really happy and grateful to be a part of this. And it was lovely to meet all of you today. And Isabel, thank you so much for inviting me.
So I'm just wondering who Natalie's going to bring into our orbit. Yeah, pass it on.
All right. Okay, I'll think about that. There's so many great people, so.
All right. I know we haven't met them all, but we're working. So everyone can mute, and thank you so much, Ms. Rich